There is an overlooked building in Switzerland that impacts your mortgage rate, the value of your savings, and the price of your groceries, and it answers to no elected government on earth. I know about it because I spent 15 years inside the financial machine. I spent over a decade managing money, and there was one institution that we rarely discussed publicly. Not the Federal Reserve, not Goldman Sachs, not the politicians in Washington. This building. 93 of the world's central banks report directly to this one tower. It's been quietly coordinating the global financial system since 1930. And they just released a report detailing 3 major financial shifts that most financial media hasn't broken down for the general audience. An $80 trillion hidden obligation, a shadow borrowing scheme funding the AI boom, and the mechanism behind the 30% single-day silver drop. While the news tells you the economy is doing great, the official institution is explicitly warning that the currents underneath are shifting in ways most people aren't tracking. Stay with me because I'm going to show you exactly what they are documenting in plain sight and how it directly affects your savings, your investments, and financial decisions most people don't know they should be tracking. Before we go any further, I want to be clear about what this channel is. Everything I'm about to show you is sourced directly from documents published freely by the BIS at the BIS.org. The links are in the description. These are not theories, these are their words, their data, their research. You can verify every single thing I say in the next minutes, because this isn't just a story for Wall Street traders. This is about why it feels harder to buy a house, afford rent, or grow your savings. If you ever wondered why the financial system seems to work differently for institutional players than for everyday investors, this building is the key. It's called the Bank for International Settlements, the BIS, founded in 1930. Most people think the US Federal Reserve or the president runs the economy. They don't. Here is how the power structure actually works. This is the bank for central banks. It coordinates the policies for 95% of the global economy. They set the framework that your bank follows, and I guarantee 99% of the public has never heard of them. One anonymous tower in Basel, Switzerland, you could walk right past it and have no idea that the people inside are making decisions that affect the fate of your retirement account. Here is where it gets highly unusual. Think about the rules that apply to regular businesses and individuals. The BIS operates under a special agreement from 1930. Their premises cannot be entered by Swiss authorities without their explicit permission. Their officials have specific immunities and their communications are protected. And there is no elected parliamentary body with direct binding oversight of their operations. They hold over $500 billion in assets, including massive vaults of physical gold. If you are tired of being blindsided by the financial system and want to understand the rules of the game, make sure you subscribe. $500 billion operating under a unique legal framework, unlike any other financial institution on earth. That is worth understanding. A few times a year, the heads of the world's most powerful banks fly into Switzerland for what the BIS calls the Basel Progress. There is no real-time public access to the private meetings, and there are no transcripts of what was discussed related to the public. In those closed-door meetings, they discuss the frameworks that will eventually dictate the interest rate on your credit card, the mortgage rate on your home, and whether the money in your pocket buys less next year than it is buying today. When I was on Wall Street, we had a saying, when Basel meets, the markets move. It's not a conspiracy theory, it's just how institutional coordination works. The big players know about it, while the everyday person doesn't. But here is the detail that matters. They publish their research, it's right there on their website. The secret isn't that the data is illegally hidden, it's just that most people don't read 50-page banking reports. But I did, and you need to hear what they are officially worrying about right now. I'm not going to give you my opinion, I'm going to show you their exact words from their research report. Let's get into it. Warning number 1 is the $80 trillion blind spot. Imagine if there was an off-the-books ledger with a massive balance that wasn't reported to the standard regulators. The BIS has found that the global banking system is doing exactly that. To the tune of $80 trillion. They call it hidden dollar debt. To put that in perspective, the entire US national debt is about $38 trillion. This hidden obligation is more than twice the size of America's total debt, and it doesn't show up on any standard accounting books. Over $2 trillion of this debt is at risk of settlement failure every single day. If this system freezes up, it would create significant stress across global funding markets. Warning number 2 is the AI mirage. Every time you turn on the news, you hear about the artificial intelligence boom, big tech companies making record profits, but the BIS just exposed what's partially funding it: shadow borrowing. Companies are building massive AI data centers using off-the-books financial structures, joint ventures, specific lease agreements. It's an obligation that looks like regular spending, but in 2025 alone, they issued over $100 billion in bonds, plus all the shadow debt on top. The BIS is explicitly warning that if the AI spending cycle disappoints, this hidden debt represents a direct transmission risk to equity markets, including the index funds inside most 401k plans. And warning number 3 was the leverage mechanism. In January 2026, silver dropped 30% in a single day. Why does this matter? Because many retail investors buy silver as a store of value. The BIS report explains exactly how this played out. Retail investors bought into funds that use borrowed money. When the price dipped slightly, institutional algorithms automatically force-sold those positions. It created a forced liquidation loop, a 30% drop in hours. Institutional traders have automated risk systems. Retail investors in these leverage products didn't, and they bore the full cost of the move. The BIS is warning these exact same mechanics exist in much larger markets. You might be thinking, if there are structural risks like this, why is my stock portfolio doing okay right now? Why is the news saying everything is fine? The BIS titled their report "Markets Recalibrate Amid Shifting Currents." Thus, institutional speak for the surface looks calm, but there is a massive shift happening underneath. They noted that the big tech stocks that drove the whole market are starting to falter. Capital is quietly relocating, and there is one massive domino sitting in Japan that could destabilize the American housing market. Here is the simple version. For years, Japan bought American debt because it was cheap. They own over $1.2 trillion of our IOUs, but right now, Japan's own economy is forcing them to raise their interest rates or intervene the FX markets like they did. So if Japan starts dumping American debt to manage their own currency like they did recently, US interest rates will skyrocket, meaning your mortgage, your car loan, and your credit card payments will surge, regardless of what the US President or the Federal Reserve does. Now let me be completely transparent with you. I'm not predicting a crash tomorrow. Here is the honest, balanced picture. Most financial commentary will tell you earnings are solid and consumer spending is holding up, and that's not wrong. The system hasn't broken yet, but here is the reality check. You don't buy fire insurance when your home is already burning. You buy it when you see the faulty wiring, The BIS, the central bank of central banks, is explicitly documenting the faulty wiring. They are flagging 80 trillion in unreported debt, of balance sheet AI borrowing, and structural dependencies of Japan's interest rate path. Markets are currently pricing these risks as if they don't exist. The BIS is saying they do. That gap is worth understanding. So what do you actually do? You don't need millions of dollars to navigate this. You just need the right playbook. Go beyond the headlines and look at the primary sources directly. The BIS report is free. The link is in my description. If the most powerful banking institution in the world is documenting stress in a specific sector, that is worth your attention, regardless of what any headline says. Watch the cost of borrowing. Don't worry about complicated stock charts. Just watch the US 10-year Treasury yield. You can Google it right now. If that number starts spiking past 4.5 or 5%, that is the early warning that the system is under stress. And mortgages are about to get painfully expensive. Step 3. Pay attention to what the big players do, not what they say. The BIS holds a substantial amount of physical gold and its own reserves. Why? Because when financial systems experience liquidity stress, institutions historically allocate to assets that hold value independently of credit markets. I'm not telling you what to buy, but I'm telling you to notice what the central banks are holding in their own vaults. The only difference between institutional wealth and the everyday person is access to information. Wall Street manages risk because they read the data you don't, but the truth is hiding in plain sight. The headline picture says one thing, but the institution that coordinates the global economy is documenting structural risks that most investors aren't tracking and publishing them publicly for anyone who looks. If you are tired of being blindsided by the financial system and want to understand the rules of the game, make sure you subscribe. See you in the next one.